You are listening to the PlantWise podcast. I'm your host, Ali Essig. And if you're looking for more recipes, workouts, coaching, and support, make sure to check out the PlantWise membership at plantwise.com. All right, guys, I am so excited because today for the podcast, I have Dr. Christopher Gardner. Now, this is a huge opportunity. You may recognize him from the Netflix series. He is a very famous plant-based PhD, how do I say,
PhD. Nutrition scientist.
Nutrition scientist,
I feed and bleed people for a living.
I feed and bleed people. Ooh.
That's how we do that's what I call it, right?
I like that.
We're going to check your cholesterol, your inflammatory markers, your glucose, your insulin, something, but I got to get you to eat different to see if I lowered it.
Yeah. And I actually refer to so many things that you've taught over the years.
Thanks.
And it's because it's so hard sometimes to really decipher truth from fiction, I feel like nowadays. And you were involved even in the 2025 Dietary Guidelines that didn't come out until 2026. Yeah. And I would love to, you shared about that today at the ICNM conference. And I would love to hear a little bit more about what that process was and just kind of the takeaways.
Sure. That's sort of one of the best places to go to think about how do we take nutrition research and turning it into evidence that defines policy. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of steps and a lot of things that go wrong. So there's a lot of things that don't get funded. There's often not enough research. Mm-hmm. When there is some research, you make the best of it you can. So for the update of the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, which happens every 5 years, for the last couple decades, 2 years before they come out, they it's a free thing. So they get 15 to 20 scientists to agree to work on it for 2 years before it comes out. Wow. And they tell you up front, it's 10 hours a week for 2 years, and it's free. You're actually somehow a government contracted person.
And you don't get paid.
You don't get paid. And you do it because you feel like, I'm going to give back. We've done all this science, and I would love it if research would turn into policy, and Dietary Guidelines ends up being policy-oriented. So the reason it's 2 years is there's a ton of research. There's not always enough. In fact, usually there isn't enough of all the best studies of all the doses and all the different type of people and all the outcomes. So you search for the literature, and there's a methodological way that you go through it thoroughly, and you say, did we miss anything? Are we misinterpreting anything? Do we all agree? Is this the thing we should say? And a huge part of the whole process was, do we feel this is limited or moderately good science or really strong science? And I have to say that after working on this for 2 years with dozens and dozens and dozens of questions that we were supposed to provide advice on, most of them were limited.
Interesting.
A bunch were moderate, and very few were strong. Like, there are so many studies. We nailed this. We got this. We can tell everybody exactly what they need. Doesn't usually work that way. So it's very nuanced.
Yeah.
So we were part of an advisory committee, and we're told, you're going to create an advisory document that after all your work, you're not making the dietary guidelines. You're passing this advisory document on to the Secretaries of Health and Human Services and the Secretary of Agriculture. And it's up to their groups to update the dietary guideline. And so traditionally, every 5 years, this has been done. And the secretaries often don't take the advice or not take all of it, and they take some of it. And one of my favorite examples is actually 2015, when much to many people's surprise, they adopted an advice about coffee. And they said, 3 to 5 cups of coffee is consistent with a healthy diet. That was a surprise to some people. First, that the scientists found that, and second, that was adopted and put in the dietary guidelines. But this very same year, those same scientists said we should hook nutrition and food to the environment. It looks like food is having an adverse effect on the environment, the way that we're growing and producing food. And they said, we're not adopting that. I'm not going to say that. Don't ever say environment again.
Wow.
And that was some really interesting political pushback. So we know going into this as an advisory committee that they wouldn't take all our advice, but they would likely take some. And what happened this particular year is they took none of it. They dismissed the entire document after we were all done.
And how 2 years of work?
Yeah.
And they dismissed everything. Okay.
We took this on when we were working with the Biden administration.
Yeah.
We turned the document over on December of 2024, which is after the election when we knew the administration was changing.
Yeah.
And at that point, there was no new Secretary of Health and Human Services, but a couple of months after that, it was RFK Jr. who was on social media saying butter is back, beef is back, pork is back, in a really irresponsible way. You'd think they'd be more cautious about the way they shared messages like that. So it was very frustrating, and our committee, the reason given for that at the time was that we had too many conflicts of interest. So it is interesting that when you start this process, you have to say every honorarium you got, every company that paid for you to travel to a conference, every direct connection you had, anybody that funded a study. Yeah. So there's little conflicts and there's bigger conflicts, and collectively between the 20 of us who are all quite senior investigators, we all had something. Mine was, I got money one time from Beyond Meat to do a study of Beyond Meat versus red meat. Part of the reason I took that money is the NIH wouldn't fund it. Wow. They thought, why would we fund a study that might promote a company? They should fund their own study. Anyway, I've actually published 5 null findings from industry-funded studies, so I consider myself pretty objective. Anyway, that was my conflict, and others had others, so they said that was one of the reasons. They appointed a committee of 9 after us to replace us, weren't transparent about it. When the guidelines finally came out, that was the first time we learned who the 9 were. We had been public for 2 years. 5 of the 9 had direct ties to meat and dairy, and the new guidelines promoted meat and dairy. And so the hypocrisy was just mind-boggling that for a year they had slammed us, slandered us, and not told us why or what they were doing. And there was a second reason that our work was dismissed. It was just as disheartening. When we were assigned this task, sort of every 5 years, it seems like they pick a couple new approaches that this new group should do. Yeah. And one of ours was, they said, why don't you guys tackle health equity? As you're going through the papers, why don't you see how much of the research is addressing race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic position? And 2 of the 20 were accepted on the committee and sought out for the committee because of their health equity background. Yeah. And so every committee meeting we had, at least one of those 2 had to be present. And sadly, for most of the research we looked at, they didn't measure that in great detail, or they didn't have a representative sample. And they said, we got who we got. So usually our conclusion was, wow, maybe we should tie federal funding in the future to being sure they at least collect the data so that we could look at it that way in the future. But this new committee of 9 generated a document. I don't think it was any of the 9 in particular. I think somebody else put the whole thing together. In the very first paragraph of the 90-page new document to justify what they were doing said, and the central concern we had, the old committee's report, was that they used a health equity lens. They said this is a problem. They never should have done that in science. You should just look at the data and then later go back and look at that. And it was like, oh my God, this is so racist. Yeah. They don't want us to look at a health equity lens. Yeah. And I can tell you one of the very few things that I can recall, even though we were assigned to look at this health equity lens the entire time, the one I definitely remember got into one of the recommendations was cardiovascular disease and a healthy dietary pattern. There had been a previous strong conclusion that there is a dietary pattern to promote cardiovascular health. And it listed veggies and fruits and beans and nuts and seeds and fish and dairy and low saturated fat and high fiber, went through this whole thing. And when we looked, we were actually able to sort the data and pull out non-white population. And it looked like many of those healthy patterns didn't actually include dairy, which sort of totally makes sense because there's a lot of non-white populations that are lactose intolerant. Right. So to tell somebody who's lactose intolerant that this is part of your healthy pattern to have dairy is a little wackadoodle. So it didn't seem like a big deal. And the way that the recommendation was modified was it said all the same things without the dairy. And it didn't say, and we hate dairy. At the bottom, it just got moved and it said, and it could include dairy. Yeah. That's as subtle as it was. Right. I'm sure the dairy industry was furious that we moved it out of the main group and into the side and could include dairy. Yeah. That is the only time I actually remember this health equity lens made a difference in the wording of the guideline that we moved forward. But to say in the beginning of this 90-page document that the central concern, it really seemed like a made-up excuse. Like, you guys have conflicts of interest and you looked at health equity, which is wrong. So we're just going to dismiss 2 years of work. 2 years. 20 of you for 1,000 hours each.
Which you volunteered for.
Volunteered for. and we're going to replace you with 9 people, 5 of which have direct ties to meat and dairy.
Wow.
It's just so disconcerting and frustrating. And now we have an upside down food pyramid with a big piece of red meat in the upper left-hand corner and some mostly actually stable old guidelines. It says eat vegetables and fruits, eat healthy fats, eat whole grains, stop so much sugar and junk food. A lot of them are fine, but the protein and the meat thing was particularly discouraging. Of the 421-page report that we generated with a 1,000-page supplement, there was a 12-page executive summary. And even the 12-page executive summary had a 2-page overarching advice to the secretaries, like, in case you don't have time to read the rest of this, here's what we found, 20 of us after 2 years.
Yeah.
There were only a couple things that made it there. And one of them was eat more beans, peas, and lentils and replace red meat.
Yeah.
And that was dismissed and flipped with having red meat in the corner of the upside down pyramid.
Wow.
So as sad as it is, it's actually been sort of a lightning rod for getting a bunch of us to get together and figure out, wow, this is not evidence-based. How is it we communicate this to the public without making them more frustrated that, oh, nutrition is so confusing, no one agrees.
Yeah.
So we've all had to be really cautious about slandering them for slandering us. It's a tricky situation, and I really feel bad for the public. Sometimes I feel awkward bringing it up.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, oh, I know you felt confused already.
Yeah. Let me make you more confused and talk about the politics of it.
So that's out there, and we're doing our best. And so it's great to have a conference like this.
Yeah.
With a fabulous community of skeptical people who are smart and bringing good issues forward and have great ideas. And so good to be here after all that.
Right now we're at the International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine, and Dr. Gardner has talked a lot, has been a speaker a few times here. And one of the things you actually said, which we, on our drive home yesterday, we're like, okay, what's one of the interesting tidbits of information you learned? And you had mentioned that about 300 calories of dairy, you're like, you're not too stressed about the dairy on the guidelines because about 300 calories a day you feel like isn't as, I don't know, detrimental, I feel like, as other people have talked about. I would love to learn more about that. That was the first thing I'm like, oh, interesting. Teach me more about that.
Wait. 300 calories. That was a fermented food.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Wait, Ted. So I am not, so I was not as concerned. Okay, so step back. So one of the changes that they suggested that maybe was controversial was they said not just 3 servings a day of dairy, but for the first time they said 3 servings a day of whole fat dairy.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And that was really targeted a lot at school kids and schools, because that's where that comes up as a big deal. For many, many years, it has been served milk, but only low fat. But the thing that was pretty ironic was you could have low-fat chocolate milk.
Chocolate milk. That's my kids. I'm like, don't take the chocolate milk. I know they're going to give it to you, but don't. And it's hard to tell your kids. They're like, but I want chocolate milk.
It's full of sugar. So how come they'll allow the high-sugar chocolate, low-fat milk, but not the plain whole milk? So I said I wasn't really as worried about that as I was that the new recommendation that got flipped to whole fat dairy didn't simply underneath say, for those who can tolerate it.
Right.
So 3/4 of the world is lactose intolerant.
Right.
So why would you push this as part of a healthy diet unless you acknowledge that not everybody can tolerate dairy? All it would take is a really small qualifier
for those who can tolerate dairy.
To be more inclusive, which once again is racist.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I even have a daughter that can't tolerate dairy. If she has it, she'll throw up. Yeah. And at school lunch, it's like required to give them unless she says something. And sometimes she won't say anything. And so I told her not to drink the chocolate milk because she would always be tempted. And then she started throwing up. Like it was like every day at the same time at school. And they would call me and I'm like, are you letting her drink dairy? Oh, yeah. My daughter was like, but it wasn't chocolate dairy. I'm like, no, it's all the same. It will make you throw up.
So they did leave soy in there. So you can still get soy as an alternative at school.
Oh, good. Yeah. See, and I've never even seen it in the school.
I'm not sure they all serve it, but it's allowed.
It is allowed.
To qualify for a reimbursable lunch.
Oh, yeah.
You can have soy.
Okay.
Because you have to have a vegetable and you have to have a fruit and you have to have a dairy or a dairy substitute.
Yeah. One of the things you talked about that I really liked is that because people don't really follow the American guidelines like at all.
Right.
But it does matter because this is what, like you said, school lunch is based off of. This is what is, WIC is based off of. These guidelines matter whether or not people follow them because it does affect especially low income and children.
Yeah, and that's pretty clear the way that we've described it in the past is that it may be aspirational for the American public, and we realize when we look at that database of what Americans eat from something called the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey and Hanes, Americans don't follow the guidelines. And who would want to be forced to follow the guidelines? It's America. You can do what you want, sort of, maybe. Sometimes, but if the federal government is providing food or funds for food safety net programs, of which there's 25 safety net programs in the U.S., which is wonderful, they say, okay, this is where you really have to follow the guidelines. If we're going to be providing food, you're going to have to follow the dietary guidelines. So another really cool thing, a cool, interesting thing is that this new administration has really come down on ultra-processed. It's a little unclear what ultra-processed is. It's more contentious than you might think, but basically it's junk. And the schools serve a lot of junk food. So tons of health professionals are on board to this idea of, yes, I don't care if you call them junk food or ultra-processed food. Let's get those out of the schools for the kids. And the frustration here has been that really needs two follow-up steps. And one is more money for school lunch from the government, and two is industry making the foods that would be affordable to the schools that aren't junk food. So the problem isn't just that they have junk food, it's that the industry is making really inexpensive junk foods that help the schools meet their guidelines and they can make their targets, but they're not good quality schools. So a bigger overhaul is needed than they're suggesting. So we're hoping somehow we can twist this rhetoric of being concerned about the quality of school food for kids into something more actionable than it has been so far. So let's applaud at least their interest in getting rid of junk food. The irony for me, for anybody who's old enough to remember Michelle Obama's campaign, in 2010, the Healthy Hunger Free Kid Act was passed. They gave the schools 4 years to get ready for it. In 2014, they implemented it. In 2015, a bunch of people were asking them to abandon it. The kids were starving. They were fighting back. They were rejecting it.
What?
And that was an attempt to add healthy food, not remove junk food. But isn't it the same thing?
Yes. Right?
And so I feel like this is institutional amnesia. Wow, MAHA has this new interest never before expressed in improving school food. It's like, no, I was here in 2010 and 2014 and the years after that when people were complaining that the new healthier school guidelines weren't working. And what my take on it is there wasn't enough effort put into helping the schools change. Bring some chefs in. Make the new food taste good. Give the schools more money so that they can buy better quality food. So that was a disaster in 2010, although school food did get a little better at that point. I hope it gets a lot better now, but I'm really concerned that they're not using evidence and they're using a lot of rhetoric and there isn't the funds to follow through, but maybe it will work that way. And the health professionals are still going to want all of that. We're going to want healthier food, less junk food, more money for schools. Be a great win for America if we did that. And let's just keep going that direction with or without MAHA.
I appreciate it. I'm a mom of 6 kids. So and I tell my kids in the morning, you can make your own lunch or you can get lunch. Like it's up to you because I don't have the energy to make all of their lunches every day. And so they do about half and half. And so, they are eating school lunch because I'm like, I just only have so much energy in a day. But so all of this is really interesting to me and how it affects them. So I appreciate you sharing that. And before we leave, I do want to just touch upon your talk about the microbiome and just like what are kind of the biggest takeaways for anyone listening about how to improve your microbiome health and some of the things that you shared yesterday.
Sure. So it is pretty fun to think that for decades and decades, we just thought of fiber as something that moves food through you so you can have regular bowel movements. Not very sexy. No. Does not sound very fun at all. But I'm really having a great time doing studies of the microbiome. So we now have done 10 studies where we sort of manipulate what people were eating, and I work with a microbiologist that checks what might happen to change the microorganisms in the colon in particular, in your large intestine. And then we work with a group that looks at inflammatory markers and immune function, because the hypothesis is if you change your diet the right way, you get a better distribution of microbes, and inflammation would go down and immune function would improve.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as all that, but what cracks me up a little bit here is, guess what it is? It's more fiber. Let's see, how would you get that? I think jelly beans.
I know, fiber one bars.
And no, you'd have to eat beans, peas, and lentils, and vegetables, and fruits, and whole grains.
Yeah.
So that part, but the little fun part on the side is a piece of that is fermented food.
Mm-hmm.
And so kimchi and sauerkraut. So we've been doing a couple studies now with folks. The first ones that we did were quite short. And so we told people where to buy these fermented products. But we were just in the middle, towards the end of a study with 135 moms. And we asked them when they were pregnant in their second and third trimester to get more fiber or fermented food or both.
Yeah.
Or neither. And instead of just 6 weeks, it was 6 months. And then maybe after that, when their kid was born, and a bunch of them started fermenting their own food. So they learned how to make
Moms are amazing.
own, and partly because it was economically more realistic to just, oh my God, it's so much easier to ferment foods than I thought. And for the sake of the study, it was only required that they do it during pregnancy. And we're now following the kids till they're 5.
Wow.
So we're trying to check out the transfer of the maternal microbiome to the kid. And then how long that lasts. But what we're finding is quite a few moms aren't eating the dose that we had them eat during pregnancy, but quite a few of them are still fermenting food.
Wow.
And eating more fermented food than they did beforehand. And so, many of these fermented foods are having a positive impact on the gut microbiome.
Oh, 100%.
So this is another really fun thing in nutrition science. The microbiome is sort of this hot new topic. It's bringing up the issue of inflammation and immune function. And so it's more novel than some of the old issues. More novel than, yes, you should eat fiber for your health, because that's been there forever. And this is just maybe another fiber maxing hook for the biohackers out there. Let's see, how am I going to improve my health? Oh, let me check my microbiome numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't eat enough vegetables or nuts or seeds or whole grains or legumes, so I'm going to do that now. I'm like, I'm all in. We said that anyway for years, but you go for it. If you want to improve that microbiome number, I'm right behind you.
You can check it. I also love how you explained that no one really understands what legumes are. And so you, even in the dietary guidelines, you had to say, and like outline exactly what they are, like, because people don't know what legumes are.
Yeah. When you do these studies, sometimes you're very specific. This was a chickpea study. This was a lentil study. This was something else. And so we kept seeing one in beans, one in peas, one in lentils. And so as nutrition scientists, we knew that the overarching botanical term for that is legumes. And so he said, well, it's really worried. It's a mouthful to say beans or peas or lentils or chickpeas so let's just say legumes. And the communications group from the Department of Health said, people won't get that. You're going to have to say beans, peas, and lentils. I said, but some of them weren't beans, peas, and lentils, but they were all legumes. And so now I have a slide that says, oh yes, legumes are fresh beans and peas, soy and peanuts, and pulses are dried beans and peas, and chickpeas, and lentils. All those are legumes and leguminous. But I can just imagine the American public going to the grocery store saying, I heard that advice, and I went and I found beans here, and peas here, and lentils here, but I didn't see legumes anywhere. Because they just don't use that word.
Yeah,
in other countries, they do.
Yeah, that's so funny.
In India, they use pulses all the time in other countries, but not here. So that was just sort of snickering that we had to change that language just to help meet America where they are.
So good.
But I don't mind. I agree. But if you can't communicate it and legumes doesn't work, so I hope you liked my little hint that we start this leguminati.
Yes.
That if we had like this cool secret society of legume lovers, that more people would learn.
I'd be part of that secret society.
And the legume thing is super cool. All leguminous plants fix nitrogen in the soil.
See, and I didn't realize that when you said that.
You go back to the environmental aspect of this. For the farmers, they often have cover crops that are leguminous. So they're actually leaving their land to lie fallow for this period.
Yeah.
So they could put nutrients back in it. And one of the ways a leguminous cover crop that fixes nitrogen in the soil, then there's less synthetic nitrogen to use.
Wow.
And less fertilizer runoff.
Beans really are a magical fruit. They're not even a fruit, but they're amazing.
It's such a win-win-win.
Yeah, it's a win for the environment. I never even knew that about the soil, that it can heal the soil.
Okay, more.
Yes. So the last thing, because everyone asks you, and this is where I learned a lot from you about protein and the guidelines, the RDA for protein, and how the American guidelines changed to increase protein amounts. Is this something, you said something yesterday about like what matters is that you actually work out more than anything. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you want to say to people who are concerned about protein?
Sure. So the dietary guidelines always have a list of nutrients of concern. And the current ones are fiber, calcium, vitamin D, and potassium. I think that was the same last time. Protein has never been called out as a nutrient of concern. It is just not an issue in America.
Right.
And the whole plant thing, don't have all the amino acids, is wrong. All plants have all 20 amino acids. Is it in the perfect distribution? No, actually animal foods have the perfect distribution of amino acids because we are more like animals than plants. But if you were ever to see a map of the different amino acids in foods, you would be and how similar carrots and peas and nuts and seeds, they are all remarkably similar, other than grains are a little short in lysine, not missing, just a little short, and beans and peas and lentils are a little short in methionine. And there's an old thing about complementing proteins, eating beans and grains together, and that's because even though beans are a little short in one, they're high in the one grains are low in. And even though grains are a little short in one, they're high in the one beans are short in. So that kind of does make sense. But not if you get a reasonable variety in your diet, because then you get more than enough every day anyway, and you're really not missing them. And America seems to think protein is meat. Plants are missing the amino acids, so I'm just going to get meat. But the meat is missing fiber, and that's what Americans are really missing, is the fiber. So one of our big conclusions, again, was eat more beans, peas, and lentils and less meat, and you will get plenty of protein that way. And the people that are having the protein bar and the protein powder and the Cheerios protein cereal and the meat, protein's one of the few things that we can't store. So we actually store an unlimited amount of fat in our body, sadly, everywhere. And if it was carbohydrate, we only store a little bit in our liver and a little bit in our skeletal muscle. If you were to look, let's see, I can't see it in you and I can't see where I store protein. There's like no place. There isn't a cell or a place to store protein. So at the end of every day, any protein that's left over gets turned into carbs, which is really funny for the keto people who are trying so hard to avoid carbs that they're eating meat, which doesn't have any, but they eat so much meat that it gets turned into carbs. They don't really understand that they've missed. A real ketogenic diet was intended to be almost all fat, not all protein. Yeah. And so they're misunderstanding that. Anyway, protein is an issue. The people who go to the gym, they tend to eat more calories than other people because they're working out. And everything has protein. All plants have protein. All plants have all 20 amino acids. So if you're eating more of anything, you're probably getting enough protein. It would be unlikely that you wouldn't be, but really to put on muscle requires resistance training. So maybe you don't have enough money for a gym membership, but there's lots of resistance things you can do at home. There's all kinds of little home kits, but you have to work your muscles until they're sore, until they rebuild. I feel like there must be people sitting in front of the TV on the couch just saying, I heard protein builds muscle. I'm just going to be sedentary and
eat your way to muscle.
And it does not work that way. Then the protein definitely gets turned into carbs and then fat. Hey, muscle-bound folks are interested, even if you're just interested in maintaining your muscle, there's an exercise physiologist named Stu Phillips who says it's more than 90% doing the resistance work and less than 10% the protein.
Yeah. And I can get it if you're a bodybuilder, like that 10% matters, but
if you want that edge, if you're going for a competition. Okay, but we're here at a conference with several hundred people, and I'm pretty sure there are no bodybuilding competitors at this entire meeting.
I love you asked, are there any athletes in the room? Right? And so if you're
elite athletes.
Elite athletes.
Any elite athletes?
I mean, we're all athletes, but elite athletes.
But I feel like the gym bro mentality is that, well, I go for a bike ride twice a week.
Right.
I walk around the block almost every other day.
I strength train twice a week. Like, that's good. But if you're a bodybuilder, that's not what you're doing.
No, those people are doing it every single day and looking for the edge. And that is not most people. So be more worried about the fiber you're not getting than the protein that you already get, and you probably don't even realize it.
So fiber, most Americans are deficient, vitamin D, calcium, and potassium.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with all those. The vitamin D thing, I think, is a little bit hokey, to be perfectly honest. Calcium, yes, Americans have a hard time getting enough calcium, and potassium is fruits and veggies, so more fruits and veggies, and fiber. For me, fiber is the big one that we're missing the most, that if you got veggies and fruits, you'd get the potassium and the fiber.
So.
And actually, there's a lot of calcium in plants as well.
Mm-hmm. Bok choy.
So if you looked at all the populations that are lactose intolerant, and you thought, wow, they don't get dairy, they must have tons of osteoporosis. They tend to have less osteoporosis.
What?
There's a New England Journal of Medicine paper by Walter Willett and David Ludwig where they have a graphic showing all the countries of the world and the rates of osteoporosis. And the ones with the most lactose, not the most, many lactose intolerant countries are at the low end of osteoporosis. But the real hypothesis here isn't the calcium, it's that bone strength is mostly driven by weight bearing.
Back to the strength training. Yeah.
So in a lot of those countries, they're doing a lot of more manual labor, a lot of walking around, carrying water for miles to get back to their village. And so they are building muscle that way. Whereas women get osteoporosis more than men in the U.S. For a U.S. woman who's sedentary, maybe that dairy makes more of a difference in the calcium, but if they would have moved more, or they would move more in the future, they would do better with weight bearing. Yes, resistance training.
Well, this has been so amazing, and I really appreciate you taking the time to step away from the conference to just explain a lot of these a little bit further and allow more people to really hear from you. If they want to learn more from you, what's the best way to follow you?
Oh, my book.
It comes out October 13th?
Yeah, this is like, you can only pre-order it now, but I'll give you one of these cards if I didn't already.
Yeah.
And
so the book is called Food Sense, What to Eat and Why by Christopher Gardner, PhD.
It covers the diet wars, protein, ultra-processed foods, seed oil slander, cholesterol, eggs, milk and plant milks, plant-based meats, sugar, fads, fiber, and fermented foods, GMOs, oh my God. So I try to take all my years of doing scientific studies and say, it's not really as controversial as it looks. If I describe the background and the context, you'll see that there's actually quite a bit of agreement about these things, if you put it in context. Out of context, it's easy to say, she and he agree, she and he disagree on this. Oh, wait, she's asking a different question than he is. They're both studying the same food or nutrient, but they're studying it in a different way. So it's not as controversial as it looks. So that would help make food sense out of what's out there.
Oh, food sense. That's how you find. Yeah, I love that. It's like making it make sense.
Yeah.
And then this comes out October 13th, but you can get it. Can you get it on Amazon? Can you pre-order?
Yeah.
Food Sense, pre-order on Amazon. And then if they wanted to watch the Netflix documentary, is it still available on Netflix? Yeah. Okay. And what's the name of that again?
You Are What You Eat.
You Are What You Eat. We watched it as a family. It
Great.
Reinvigorated me again. I'm like, yes, I love this stuff. So, no, thank you so much for taking the time to step away and to learn from you. I love it. I'm excited to get your book when it comes out. So we appreciate this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Allie. Over and out. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for listening to the PlantWise podcast. If you need more recipes so that you can put everything you just learned into practice, then make sure to check out the PlantWise Cooking YouTube channel, as well as going to plantwise.com to check out our blog and our recipe meal guides. See you next week.